Well, hello. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. My name's Olivia Kim,
Okay.
and I'm going to be your social worker.
Okay.
What is your name?
Patty Willingham.
Patty Willingham. Okay. Well, before we get started, I'm just going to run by you just some of the things that I needed you to know.
Okay.
Everything that you say here is left confidential. And so, if anything that you do say is of harm to you or anyone else, I am mandated to report that.
Okay.
So, just wanted to let you know that before we get started, okay?
Okay.
All
No
right.
problem.
Well, if you could tell me a little bit more about you, where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in California,
Okay.
but kind of back and forth because we left there. I was the youngest of four, and we left when I was two, roughly, I think, and went to rural Utah because my dad
Okay.
did not want to raise us in Los Angeles, which was even getting busy at that time. So I grew up primarily in a very small town,
Okay.
central Utah. When I was, I guess it was my freshman year, we moved back to the San Diego area of California.
And could you tell me how old you were when all of this occurred?
Well, like I said, I would say we moved there at 2,
Okay.
and I think we left around, I'm trying to remember if it was either 8th grade or 9th grade, but I want to say the summer before I went in to my 9th grade, my freshman year. I think that's right.
And did you?
So I ended up graduating
Oh, okay.
high school in San Diego.
Okay. And did you enjoy being in San Diego once you moved there?
I did. I think that having both was a really good opportunity because I had all the things that were nice about growing up in a small town because you could play outside. You could ride your bikes. You felt safe. I mean,
Right.
I could tell my mom I'm going over to my friend's house, and that could be 3 blocks away, which you would never do now
Yeah.
as a child, and walk there. And literally either walk there or ride your bike. And they didn't really even give it a second thought.
Yeah.
And but then moving back to a larger city right in the high school days, I think was probably good because a small town can get a little bit boring when you get older and kids can get into some trouble. So I was able to learn to drive in California,
Okay.
and I got to enjoy shopping and going to the beach with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to mess up your interview
No.
today.
No. You're fine. You're fine. Thanks for considering that. So you said you did the work program. What was some of the good things that you experienced from doing that, or did you ever feel like, I wish I was involved in a sport or something like that, or did you really enjoy doing it?
I don't know. Hindsight, I'm not 100% sure. I was kind of a girly girl,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I mean, not that obviously girls participate in sports every day.
Right.
I just think that it worked out. It worked out fine in the end.
Okay. So you got a good amount from it.
I did. I think I got good work experience. Even though your first jobs are usually fast food or something like that, but good work ethic from my parents. So I was happy to get a job and make some of my own money.
That's awesome. Well, you just told me that you grew up in Utah, moved to San Diego, got involved there, and where are you living now?
Actually, we live in what you would call North Georgia.
Okay.
I guess North Georgia.
Here in Georgia.
Mountains,
Yes.
correct. And so this area was, let's see, I was in Texas for a while, which is where all my children were born.
Okay.
My ex-husband was from Texas.
Okay.
So we lived there. All my girls, I've got 3 girls, they were born in Texas.
Okay.
And
Nice.
And about 2001, we moved here. So this is really kind of home now. I love the South, and Texas was good to us, and I love Georgia because it's beautiful. I mean, not only is it the South too, and the people are great, it is a melting pot, but it's also really beautiful. I think that the outdoor here, you kind of have the best of everything because you got 4 seasons.
Right.
Winter is not oppressive, but you do
Yes.
you do have a winter. Sometimes
Yes.
it's lighter than others.
Yes, for sure. So you just said that you had moved from Texas to here. You had 3 girls.
Correct.
Are you now married to someone else? You said you had an ex-husband. Are
Correct.
you remarried now? Or are
Yes.
you single?
And let's see, it's 16, so 2013.
Okay.
After dating for a couple years, I remarried,
Okay.
and so I've been remarried for 3 years now.
Oh, neat.
Just right over 3 years. Correct.
How'd you guys meet?
We met at a single Christian parents group, and it was kind of started probably in a church, but then the church wanted them to maybe take the group and do something with it on their own. And at the time, some of the lead people, a man volunteered. He had it in his home. He would usually, pretty much every time that we met, have a really good speaker. And it would be topics relevant to either Christianity or being divorced. So everybody was a parent. So you'd have divorce issues, parent issues, and Christianity, spiritual things. So there was always a lot of good speakers, and we met there.
Yeah. And so you said that divorce and Christianity, those were the common themes there. And when you were...
And it was a single parent group. So there wasn't...
So that was
there was
common.
there was not any single people per se without children.
Okay.
So that way, that was a bonding thing. Because, oftentimes, that can be a struggle if you meet someone that does not have children and you do. They may not be able to relate. So
yeah, sounds like there were some commonalities
among
the group, which helps.
Exactly.
Helps.
And I think it was a healthy environment to meet people. And to be honest, at the time, I just needed to connect with other single people that had, parents or whatever that had gone through some of the same things, because after my divorce, I realized that I had a lot of married friends.
Yeah.
So when things change in your life, sometimes you need new friends, new people to talk to about what you're going through.
Right. So I agree with you. And to me, what it sounds like to me, that you really put yourself out there to find others that were like you.
Correct.
And so you could find some others that can meet you where you were.
Correct.
In the journey that
and
you
it was
were in.
actually a counselor that referred me to the group because she had spoken at the group.
Okay.
And so that ended up being, really a positive.
Yeah, for sure. And so with you going to the group, and now you're being married and everything, how has that been for you with, being remarried? You said you had 3 girls.
Correct.
What is that like for you now? How has that been?
I think it's good. Now, my husband Tom, his children are older, so none of his children, a daughter and 2 boys, have been in the home with us. My 2 youngest girls, even though the middle daughter was already graduated from high school, she remained in the home with us for a while.
Okay.
And, I think that, it's a lot of trial and error. Because you think that you're making the right choices all the time. But, at the end of the day, I think that, his goal, even though he would admit that he's made errors or mistakes, was just to be a positive influence for my daughters, because, they're either here or living with us, or, I'd like to think they're all very close to me, so, that's important.
It is important. And you said the middle child lived with you. for a time period. And your other two daughters, where are they at the moment?
Well, currently my oldest daughter is married,
Mm-hmm.
and she has my granddaughter. So she's had a baby, and
Oh,
she
cool.
has her own little girl right now, and she's a teacher. So she and her husband are not far from here, less than 30 minutes,
Nice.
which is wonderful. And she's on to her own career, which she went to, to school for. She didn't immediately start it because she had a baby,
Mm-hmm.
but now she's, starting her first year of teaching and doing really well.
Oh, nice.
Yes, correct. And my middle daughter is in college still. She's currently finishing up her schooling, only got about a year left or so.
Okay.
And she actually got married as well. So,
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, my two oldest girls ended up getting married,
Yes.
kind of young, but, that's the part about growing up. You get to make your own choices, and parents go, wow, I didn't know they were going to do that.
And it's a normal thing to go through those things and see your children experience whether they want to go to college and pursue a fulfilling career, or they want to, or they want to get married, or they want to remain single, and I guess those are the things that you go through with parenthood.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, you want to be able to support your kids in whatever they're doing.
Yes.
So, hardest job you'll ever have.
Well, it
Being a
sounds
parent.
like you're doing a really good job.
Well, thank you.
Yes, and you're handling it well, and you're very close with your daughters, and so that's an awesome thing. Yes. And with your younger daughter, you said the older one
Correct.
is married and has a little girl.
She does.
And the younger one, how old is she?
She is 17. She's 17 right now. And when I did get remarried, she wanted to stay with her father because that was the only school district that she had ever been in.
Okay.
So, that's one of those decisions that will probably forever be hard for me because I don't think that we should have been separated, even if it is for a reason like that. It's been a challenging thing. And while, you can't, you have to go on, you make these life decisions and you have to go on because you live in the past.
Right.
It's very difficult.
Right.
But it's been, always been, let's see, 3 full years now since I got married. So
Right.
3 full years, I guess.
Okay.
A little bit over that. Since she has lived with me. And, while I think I definitely had some depression at the beginning,
Okay.
just being separated. And part of that was probably because it was more of an unnatural separation. When, a child goes off to college or gets married, you might be hurting and feel kind of lost, but that's still the progression. And for her, she was still in middle school, I think, at the time. So that it felt unnatural, and it's been a challenge for me. It's been a real challenge for me, and while I wouldn't want to say, oh, I wish I hadn't done this, it's a decision that. If somebody asked you, would you make the same decision again? I couldn't give you an absolute yes answer because it's been that hard. So, it's not about not loving your husband, your new husband, or that kind of stuff, but it's been such a hard process that you can't just say, yes, for sure, I would make this again. So.
And from what you're saying, it sounds to me that you're still, to this day, dealing with the idea of her being there.
Yes.
And not being with you.
Yes. And I think, my husband now and I was trying to explain to him that last month I had some problems and feeling very low. And probably a lot of those issues were kind of coming back up. So I did just recently tell him that it's kind of like, he's really doing a great job kind of getting his things in order because it's very important to him to leave a legacy for his kids and grandkids. And, we're going to share some together. We're going to get to share some of those together too, as far as there'll be kids born while we're married, which will be awesome. And, my first granddaughter was. Um, it's very important for him to, uh, you know, get his will in order and get things in order. He's a little older than I am, and just make sure that his family is taken care of. And, you might call that your legacy.
Okay.
And, it's like I explained to him the other day, it kind of feels like my legacy was broken. It didn't get finished because of, just that separation, which, all divorced parents may very well feel, men and women. I think, it feels unnatural for me. So.
Do you feel like you're able to define a new legacy for yourself now?
Well, I think that's part of the journey that God's got me on, is maybe trying to heal some of those places that I feel like are hurting. And and that is the question. How do I continue on with this legacy that kind of feels broken? But it's not like we're not in each other's lives. We're in each other's lives. It's just, it's different. It's different. So, it's probably a day-by-day process right now.
And if you were to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being that you feel like your structure of your family and the legacy and everything that you just spoke about, if that was a 1 and that it's kind of in your perspective broken, that being a 1 and 10 being that you feel like things have come together, they've been complete, where would you say you fall at between a 1 and a 10 with that situation right now?
With 1 being the worst and 10 being the best
Yeah,
scenario.
you're comfortable, everything feels in place now.
I think, if you look at my 2 older children, I would say it's very high. They're on their own now, and I'm happy that they're doing well, and your input is more advice,
Okay.
So I would say it's, it's very high, 8s, things like that, because you've always got things you want to share, your kids.
Yeah.
But I would say it's still lower it's not the worst. It's not that I have a doomsday feel about my daughter, my youngest daughter, because she's a smart girl. I just worry how overall it might impact her and what she will take into her future, from this, and everybody will be different. But, it's hard to say. She could be the most resilient. It's just hard to say. For me, it feels lower. It feels more like a 4, I would say, because I haven't finished my job. It feels kind of
And you said to me
incomplete.
Yes. And you said just a second ago, the impact. You defined that word. You said impact on her. Is she going to be resilient? What do you mean by impact? What are the impacts on her right now in her life that you're worried about?
I think the impacts are, in some regard, I worry a little bit about the impact of, what does she think of mom? But to be honest, it's not as great. I think that's more of my insecurities.
Okay.
I feel that way. I feel like she does unconditionally love me, but I have more worries about the impact of men, whether it be a father figure or boys in her life, and whether or not, she'll seek attention, either in an unhealthy manner, and I think you kind of worry about that for
Mhm.
all girls
Yeah.
in general, because you don't want them to be, defined by a relationship.
Right.
But I just worry that it could be defined differently for her. I mean, obviously we know our life is what shapes us. The things that have happened in our lives, is what shapes who we are as people. So, you can either choose to use it for good or choose to dwell on it. And, I guess it's a challenge because I don't want to think I'm dwelling on it.
Mhm.
I just wish I felt more effective. I don't always feel as effective as I wish that I was
Okay.
in positive changes or positive choices in her life. The positive things that you would want for any of your kids.
Mhm. And you just said to me the male influences, and then you being connecting that to the effects that you can have on her. How do those connect? Is there something to do with that she's struggling with someone who's a male figure or a boyfriend, and you're feeling as
I
if
don't know that
was
she
there
would
something
be,
as that sort?
as much as I feel like her father has
Okay.
chosen to maybe be a friend, or have a less aggressive disciplinary approach. And studies say, I don't know, I'm not, I'm not a
Mhm.
counselor,
Mhm.
but studies say that kids actually crave the discipline of structure
Mhm.
and of actual discipline having consequences to your actions, because otherwise they're in that learning process. They don't know which way to go. You're kind of asking them, if you think about it, you're kind of asking them to be an adult if you don't uh, help them through these disciplinary processes of growing up. Like you've broken your phone. I can't get you another one right now. It's your choice. What's happened. It's unfortunate, but we've got to. You're gonna have to live without one for a while, or um, maybe taking a privilege away. I mean, it could just be anything. I think the day-to-day choices of parenting, complete. It could be a school issue, it could be a driving issue, it could be a friend issue. If it feels like I feel a little bit paralyzed to help her with my opinions and things like that. Even though I can share them, um, yeah, sometimes I do. Like, how can I be effective? So it's been hard. I just want to show her that I love her, but um, being too much of a disciplinarian doesn't work when they're not with you all the time. It doesn't work very well because they can just revert back to whatever else they're going to do when they go back to the primary residence that they're at.
Could you describe to me a little bit what the parenting style of your ex-husband is? Just to get a
Well,
little better idea.
I would say it's probably it's been a lot of years now. Actually, it's hard to believe, but now it's been um, a full decade for our separation, and then after subsequent divorce. So I would say he was very hands-on when the children were younger, and didn't really seem to know exactly how to how to. I don't know if influence is the right word, or if it's just the disciplinary process of when a child matures. They go adolescence, teenager.
Life stages.
Yeah, the life stages. He didn't really have that, I don't think. It was kind of stunted by a divorce on his parents' part. And, that could be, I don't know. You don't know whether it's something to do with his own childhood or whether the relationship with his father and himself. But I definitely think he's a completely different parent for younger children than older. Not that we can't overcome our weaknesses,
Right.
I think we can. If you know what they are, sometimes you don't. You have blinders on. You don't really know.
But the fact that you've been able to identify that correlation of maybe his childhood being somewhat, hands off and not always there, you see that pattern maybe trickling into your own children with him.
Correct. I think that sometimes that is the case. It
It's a really
feels kind of
strong-
like history
strong-
repeating itself.
Right.
And for me, it's been, it was a large struggle to go through a divorce with 3 children, and I think that the hardest part by far has been witnessing, your children being, in 2 different homes and
Right.
things like that. So
Yeah.
it's a hard thing.
It is hard. Very hard. Well, from what you have said with your ex-husband and just being able to identify, like I just said, the correlation and where you are now, how do you think for yourself and going forward in the future, knowing his past, knowing your current situation right now, and how you've remarried and you still have your daughters and you're close with them? What are some ways that you feel like you can maybe grow in terms of maybe working alongside with him to co-parent? Do you feel like there may be some way to try?
I don't know. I've reached out and tried for that, and that's not really been reciprocated.
Okay.
So whereas people say that, unless somebody can convince, and it's not even to say that I've done everything right, because that would be false. Everybody knows that even if there's extenuating circumstances, that it's mostly one person's fault that the divorce happens, there's still 50-50 things that occur within a marriage that you have to take ownership for. You cannot force someone to do things that they won't do. And that's probably the most challenging part. I think, though, that the sad issue is that, I actually just heard something on the radio that, you can be most concerned about yourself and, how to deal with the change and things in your life. But when you're a parent, it goes beyond that. You have to have that concern and that extra level of connection to making things right. To I guess what I heard them say is to go that extra mile. If I'm your coworker and we just don't have the same personality, I can just kind of maybe not. I don't have if it's not required that I work with you.
Right.
And have this, we can work together, we can be civil, but we don't have to have a friendship. And I think that the same should be said, really, except that you should have to go that extra mile when you're a parent, because it's not their fault that you're divorced. You should still have to, it should still be required that you have to work with the other parent, if at all possible, to secure your kid's best interest, whatever that may be.
Do you feel like it's difficult potentially to co-parent with him because of the past of being married and those emotions? Because you had
I think it's much more difficult for him right now than myself.
Okay.
So, whereas I'm sure I could have said that early on, I'm really ready to embrace that, especially the last few years, so that we could do the right thing, for my youngest daughter. It's just, it's really hard because one thing I've learned is that the courts don't really honor some of the fears or things that you might say is that, you think that child should be with you and they get to a certain age and, anybody would say, well, who's going to let a 13 or 14-year-old decide whether they're going to go eat popcorn, stay up all night, and then, not go to school the next day? Nobody would let them do that, for 2 weeks at a time, but we're going to let a 13, 14-year-old decide which house they should live in because we think they're mature enough. It's really not a good system. I think their input should be heard, but, if all possibility, I don't know if I agree with the because they can be coerced, and that I do feel like I've seen that. I probably have more stronger disciplinary skills, and I think that the kids pick up on that. It's not the first time. Thankfully, I've had some friends tell me that not only they chose to go live with their father, and they were a girl because they knew it would be easier to live with them. But I've also heard it, from like, yeah, my sister did that or my mom did that. Yeah. And that has helped a little bit because I think people, want to judge you harshly for that. Or at least it's felt that way because it's a sore spot for me.
Yeah. And so you've had some experience with the legal system and trying to have her with you, and like you've just told me that didn't happen after all. And so with everything that we talked about, from you living in Utah and moving to San Diego, and then your journey from Texas to Georgia, and then of course the divorce, and your children, and trying to understand like this dynamic with your new husband. Now going forward with everything we've talked about, especially some of the areas that you expressed to me that were really difficult, like co-parenting with your ex-husband. I think some really good ways that we can go forward from here is just in the future talking about maybe identifying some ways that you can co-parent better with him potentially. And we can definitely work on a couple different mechanisms that we can get for you to maybe have him open up to you. And that may be something we have to discover the more we meet. And then maybe talking a little bit more about some of the other things with the relationships with your daughters, and just some of those really positive things in your life, and just understanding just how to work with those. And so I think we've had a really good talk today, and I've learned a lot about you, and I appreciate you opening up with me. And I think for the future, we'll just keep continuing this talk, and I think we're going to really make some good progress in just figuring out what we can do with this situation. And I think everything's going to be okay with that. And I'm here for you to work with you with that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And what you've expressed to me, you've shown a lot of resilience and strength going through what you have, and you're really here to be open and willing. And so I appreciate that. So
I think sometimes that's the only way. Yeah. Did you see me at one point? I was like doing this because I was like,